Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to be moving right along today. We have a very full schedule. Today, we also want to remember that we are celebrating the 113th year of Rotary International, organized February 23rd, 1905. So they had a birthday this week, and we want to make sure we recognize them. Today we're going to be hearing from Michele Free and Mike Davis from Meyer Hill Lynch about cybersecurity, something I know we're all very interested in. But before we get to that, Peter Handwork will give us a reflection, and Nate Gregg will follow with the pledge.
Dear God, thank you for this day, a day when we as Rotarians meet to reaffirm our commitment to our community and to our world of service above self, a commitment that is born of a knowledge that this service will be beneficial to all concerned. And yet, the world, our nation, our own community is subject to danger, disaster, and peril. In this time, let us remember those who are oppressed, who are victims, and who are less fortunate than we. Let us also remember and be thankful for those who stand in harm's way to protect us. Today we thank our speakers for sharing their knowledge of the cyber world, its perils and pitfalls, that they may impart their knowledge to us in a way that allows us to be more safe. Remember those who have gone before us, be they family, friends, or fellow Rotarians. May they live in our hearts forever. Now please bless this food to our use and us to thy service. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Judge Handwork and Nate. And thank you to our sponsor, SSOE, this month. Do we have any visiting Rotarians, Emily? No visiting Rotarians today. How about guests? Do we have guests that would like to be introduced? And moving forward, folks, we have a guest sign-up table, which is opposite the It's a Ball table, the It's a Cabaret table. So there's a computer there for all our guests to sign in when they come. So help them get in and get signed in. So please go ahead.
Thanks, Madam President. I'd like to introduce Kim Cryan, Chief Financial Officer at the Toledo Community Foundation.
Welcome, Kim.
Madam President, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amber Lear from the Alexis Road Family Dental.
Welcome, Dr. Lear.
Potentially a new member.
Thank you.
President Sharon, fellow Rotarians, I'm back with more guests. This is our cybersecurity team from the Andersons, Brian Ahrens and Greg Homan and John Majorowski.
Thank you, and welcome to the cybersecurity team from Andersons. At this time, I would like everybody who has a red badge to please stand up. I was going through the badges and looking, and we have 29 new Rotarians, so red badges, please stand up and be recognized. And folks, make sure you stop and say hello to them. Thank you. It's a good time to check into social media and let them know that you are at a very, very good club meeting today, and that you are attending the Rotary Club of Toledo. And once you do so, I encourage you to please put your phones away for an hour and give yourself the gift of Rotary. So we have much going on in the club, as you well know, and you've seen everything out there. But we're working right now on our It's a Cabaret. So the It's a was put together so that we would have a vehicle to raise money for transformational projects. And while we may not know exactly what that transformational project is today, I want you to remember that back in 1918, Rotary started funds for the crippled children, which went on to be the club. Then from there they went on and created a school, which we now know as the Glendale Fieldbox School. And also, The society went on to create what we know today as the Ability Center. So folks, we do really great things in the area of transformational projects. You'll be hearing more about them as we get closer to our date. But just remember, we have the important work that our FAC does in putting some money into the community, and you're going to see a bit of that today. But when we look to do transformational projects, these are very large, sustainable projects that the Toledo Rotary Club can take a lot of pride in the type of projects that we have done. And, you know, the Ability Center, for those that don't know, will be celebrating their 100th year in 2020, so we'll have a lot of celebration to do then. So how can you help? How can you help raise funds for the transformational project? First of all, sell and buy raffle tickets. Attend the event where we'll raise money, we'll be fundraising while having fun. And that's the thing. We'll have a It's a Something every year. This year we're just going back to the early 1900s when there was a lot of prosperity in the area. And Toledo Rotarians started thinking about being philanthropic, hence the couple projects that I just talked to you a bit about. So I'm also going to ask that please support our sponsors. As you know, the Mark Makalinsky Foundation is our major sponsor for the evening, but we also have Yark Automotive, who is our sponsor for the raffle. There is Two Scale, the Andersons, the Blade, Buckeye Broadband, Cumulus Media, Impact Employment Solutions, Lamar, Marquis, Prime 2 Consulting, Telesystem, Thread Marketing Group, and VNA Risk Services. So there's a lot of support for what we do in the community. So let's recognize our sponsors also with a round of applause. Okay, at this time I'm going to invite Chuck Stocking to come up and present a check to Carly Salamone of Northwest Ohio Pathways.
Thank you, President Sharon. On behalf of the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation, it's my pleasure today to present a grant check in the amount of $10,000 to the Northwest Ohio Pathways Hub. The grant will be used to provide services to at-risk or disadvantaged pregnant women. And I'm so grateful that you mentioned what our philanthropic activities, because this is a perfect example of what Rotary Local and Rotary International does. Rotary International has 6 priorities, and I'll just name them briefly: promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, saving mothers and children, supporting education, and economic development. This grant today is a local expression of our interest and mission to save mothers and children from untimely and unfortunate births that may occur in death of the child and so in other activities. Our Community Service Committee members received the request, participated in the vetting process, and made the decision to recommend grant approval to our club board and foundation trustees. And that grant was recently approved. So it's my pleasure to invite Carly Salamone, Assistant Director for the Northwest Ohio Pathways Hub, to come to the podium and accept the grant and share a short version of what you're doing in Northwest Ohio. Carly?
Thank you so much. My maiden name was Miller. It was much easier to pronounce, but we want to take a moment to thank the Rotary Club of Toledo for this funding. Because of this, so far, since we received the funding, we've been able to serve 9 women in Lucas County, connecting them to prenatal care, to housing, to utility assistance, mental health services, a whole array of things. So the Pathways program works to connect pregnant women in Northwest Ohio to prenatal care while removing their barriers. So we know that pregnancy is a very hard time in someone's life, and it's hard enough to make sure that we're doing what we need to do every day. But if women have social barriers, if they're homeless, if they're don't have health insurance, if they're worried about where their next meal is going to come from, if they have other children that they have to provide for, prenatal care may not be their top priority. The role of a Pathways community health worker is to identify what those other needs are and address them and remove those barriers so that they're able to get to the doctor. They're able to have that healthy pregnancy and have that healthy baby and make sure that that baby lives till their first birthday. So again, just since we've received the money, the money from the Rotary has assisted 9 pregnant women so far, but we look forward to being able to come back here and report at the end not only how many women we were able to serve, but what additional services we were able to connect them to, as well as what their birth outcomes were, so that we can make sure all of our babies are living healthy lives. So thank you very much again. We really appreciate it.
I'd just add one more thing: is in the world, in the impoverished world of sub-Saharan Africa and other impoverished areas, the mortality rate for young children is roughly 25% by the time they reached age 4, so from water or whatever else. Here in Northwest Ohio, the mortality rate is 7.3 individuals per 1,000 births. U.S. average is 5.8. We have work to do locally as well as internationally, so thank you again to all of you who contribute and support the foundation.
And thank you for the committees that do such a great job. Another committee, Kendra Smith with the Youth Service Committee, is going to give a brief report on a Read for Literacy project. And we have Diane Bush, who will also speak with us today. Kendra?
Good afternoon. I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone for participating in the Youth Services Committee's Winter Project, which focused on youth literacy. This year we decided to conduct a supply drive with Read for Literacy, and we're able to donate a series of items from their wish list, books, school supplies, things that will all go toward youth in the Toledo area. And so I wanted to introduce Diana Bush, the Executive Director of Read for Literacy, to talk a little bit about the organization and exactly what they do with the supplies that are collected from the drive.
Thank you. Good afternoon. No? So they tell me I only have 2 minutes to talk, and if any of you have heard me speak about literacy, you know I could go on for far longer than that. So I'm going to give you the brief synopsis. Read for Literacy works with about 600 3 through 9-year-old children on increasing their early literacy skills. And reading is a skill just like anything else, learning to play the piano, learning to play basketball. And if these children don't have the skills in their home on top of in their school to better their skills, it'll never get better. So we thank you for all of the books that you donated, all of the school supplies. At Read for Literacy, we're passionate about putting books in the hands of children, and we donate and give away about 10,000 books a year, both new and gently used. So we appreciate Rotary's support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra and Diane. Another great project. At this time, Cindy Kerr is going to come and introduce new member Rachel Bach, and Cindy's been a member since 2016. And Cindy, thank you for sharing the gift of Rotary with Rachel.
President Sharon and fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Rachel Bach. Jim Kneep is also her second sponsor. Rachel is the president and the CEO of Connect Toledo Downtown Development Corporation, which is a private sector-driven nonprofit organization dedicated to the development of downtown Toledo. So Rachel and I, downtown is our baby. Originally from Toledo, Rachel comes to us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she has lived and worked since 1984. Over the past 20 years, she has become a recognized leader in the fields of urban planning, economic development, public-private partnerships. Rachel's breadth of experience in Southeast Florida has given her a jack-of-all-trades reputation, having held leadership positions in local government, private real estate development, and the nonprofit sector for the Urban Land Institute under its Turbover Center for Workforce Housing. More recently, Rachel has served as the Senior Redevelopment Administrator for a private redevelopment consulting firm, RMA, providing specific expertise to local government and redevelopment agencies, clients in the areas of land development, strategic planning, private-public partnerships, and redevelopment management and administration. And I should tell you that we probably use the word redevelopment about 24 times a day in the office. So, Rachel has received her Master's of Urban and Regional Planning from Florida Atlantic University and a Bachelor of General Studies from Kent State University. She is also a Bowser High School graduate and is excited to return back to Toledo with her family to be part of the transformation taking place here in our downtown. She has two teenagers, Dakota, who's 13, and AJ, who's 14. In her spare time, of course, she has their taxi service for them. When she's not doing that, she enjoys attending art festivals and exploring new things, and there's always something to do in downtown. Her pet peeve actually comes from when she lived in Florida. When she told people that she was actually from Toledo, they would often ask her the question, "Oh, are you from a farm?" No, we actually have big buildings and everything here. Fellow Rotarians, please give a warm welcome to Rachel Bach.
Okay, we have a couple floor mic announcements. Rachel Hobson from Vocational Services and Ben Hunger from International.
I guess I'll start. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm here to offer an announcement about the Interact interviews for this year. I know many of you have participated in past years, and basically what it is it's an hour sit down with local high school students. So we have March 19th, we have Young Men of Excellence from Waite High School. March 26th, we have St. Francis coming back. And April 23rd, we have Toledo School of the Arts. And thank you to Kurt Church and Gary Corrigan, who have been our school liaisons and have helped make this happen. And the time commitment is 10:30. You arrive at 10:30. There's an hour with the student, and then host them as a guest at our lunch program so that they can meet other professionals. So if you're interested and you want to sign up, look at the Spoke. There's an online sign up, and then we also have a committee meeting after the lunch program. So if you have any questions, you can head upstairs, and we're happy to answer any of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. A great way for you folks to share your talents.
Good afternoon, everybody. So March 16th, another reminder, is the Toledo's visit to RI Internationals for the whole district. It's open to everybody. And so far, we've got maybe about 10 people signed up, so we've got room for 15 more. There's 1 week left to book your hotel rooms, so please hurry. Now, also FYI, the 17th, that's the day after, Saturday, is St. Patrick's Day. So that's when they turn the River Green, so it's a great time to come to Chicago. Any questions, see me.
Thank you very much. At this time, Kathy Tate is going to come up and introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you. Hi, fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure today to introduce our two speakers on cybersecurity. And prior to the meeting, I asked each of them to give me a little tidbit because I thought their subject's very serious, and they're both IT people. So Mike Davis is a business development manager at Meyer Hill Lynch. And prior to MHL, he worked for Buckeye CableSystem, Telesystem for 27 years, where he held roles as a telemarketer, customer service manager, marketing manager, and the director of product development and marketing. But what you don't know, I have three things instead of one. He appeared in an Ozzy Osbourne music video, which I don't know anyone else that did that. He also does karaoke, and I'm told that he gets requests to do Crazy Train. And he has a Ozzy Osbourne bobblehead on his desk, which he just doesn't look like he'd be an Ozzy Osbourne follower to me. So that's a little tidbit on him. He lives in Waterville with his daughter Kaitlyn, who's active in the Anthony Wayne Marching Band. He's vice president of the board of directors for Focus Federal Credit Union and also serves as president of the Finance Council for St. Charles Parish in South Toledo. He graduated from the University of Toledo with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Communication, and he's been a lifelong resident of Northwest Ohio. Now, Michele, she owns a drone. I'm not sure where she's flying it, so be careful, but that was as a result of that Toledo aerial. Well, they had a program, we did also, but she also has a remote control R2-D2, so I don't know about that. But Michele is an account manager consultant with Meyer Hill Lynch as well, and has been in the IT industry for 28 years in many different roles, with roles that range from communications technician to project manager to business consulting. She graduated from Owens Community College with her degree in electronics engineering. She lives in Maumee with her husband and 3 children, and she is currently serving as president-elect for Rotary Club of Maumee. So, welcome, fellow Rotarians, to Michele Free and Mike Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us, and thank you, President Sharon, for allowing us to come in and talk with you today about cybersecurity. I also want to thank those of you from Toledo Rotary that came out and supported our auction last Saturday night in Maumee. We had a fantastic event, and we're looking forward to supporting you it's a cabaret event in April. Okay, so real quick, I want to give Mike some time to go through. We've got a loaded program here that we normally do this for our customers at a lunch and learn. But the reason that this program came about and this presentation came about is as we work with IT departments and their staff, we realize that cybersecurity and cyber crimes and the vulnerabilities, it doesn't really matter how many levels of security and products and solutions that we put into place, behind the scenes, behind the walls of the IT department. So much of the results of the cybersecurity depend on the end users. And while this is all laid out for them kind of out of sight, out of mind, there's still that wild card of what the user might do. So we felt that it was very necessary to get out to our customers and their users, not just talk to the IT department, but also get in front of their users and give them a primer on what they should be watching for and what they can also do to contribute to the actual security of the data and of the information and the risk of costing your organizations lots of money to get data back. So is Neil here? I think I saw Neil come in. Hi, Neil. How are you today? Neil? I was better until you called me. So we presented this to the users at the Mud Hens organization, and Neil was critical in helping me out with the definition of cybersecurity. Neil, do you remember what that was? Do you want me to take it from here for you? Okay. All right. I appreciate that because I try to leave these things to the experts. So. Okay, so the definition of cybersecurity, it really is the collection of solutions that work together. They're integrated and they work together to form multiple layers of protection against data loss and vulnerability to unauthorized access to your business intelligence, your data, your assets. So with that, I'm going to kind of get started here. That is right, Michelle. Thank you, Neil. I was sweating that. Okay, so our agenda is what is cybersecurity and why do we need it? What do I watch out for? How do I protect myself and my business? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Davis, who will take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you again for having us.
Thanks, Michelle. And as she mentioned, we've delivered this presentation to many of our customers because your end users, the people in your environment, are constantly getting inundated with spam, with messages, and they are just one click away from putting your business at risk. So talk a little bit more about who we are and what we do in case you haven't heard of Meyer Hill Lynch. We were founded in 1989, so we've been providing about 28 years of network security for several businesses, governments in our area. We've been named to CRN's top 250 IT providers in the United States for the last 5 consecutive years. And as I mentioned, we service businesses of all sizes, governments, schools, nonprofits. So as we get into this, Michelle kind of mentioned what is cybersecurity. So what is it? Well, you see it in the headlines every day. So just recently in the USA Today, cyber threats, huge for small business. This is not just something that affects the Targets and the Home Depots of the world. Newsweek, ransomware attacks 2017 was a banner year for cyber attacks, over a 250% increase over the same statistics in 2016. And probably one of the more scary ones is this one from Fox Business where experts say we're only seeing the beginning. So as Michelle mentioned with cybersecurity, it's providing against the unauthorized physical access to your infrastructure, to your network, to your equipment. Any unauthorized access. Malpractice by your staff. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's accidental. Unauthorized access to your smart devices. We are a society now of being mobile. You have your smartphones, your tablets, your thermostats are now connected wirelessly, sometimes even your refrigerators. These are all access points into your network, into getting into your system. So I'll go through some quick stats here and what I like to call some scary stats. There's over 33 million websites out there today that are labeled as malicious. And over 75% of legitimate websites contain an unpatched vulnerability. Anyone here affected by the Equifax breach that happened late 2017? This is a perfect example. They did not patch the server, and over 2 months they were allowed to take that data off of those servers. A simple patch of that server possibly could have prevented that from happening. There's a 92% chance that a user is going to visit a zero-day website. What's a zero-day website? It's a site that's so new that the security manufacturers haven't had time to develop anything to fight against it. So, and a lot of times, those sites are only active very quickly, less than 24 hours. When we turn to email, so some email statistics, over 50, I think a lot of us would probably agree, over 50% of the emails you receive are spam. Enterprise security suites can miss up to 10% of those because, again, as these hackers and developers are pushing these through, they're doing so many new things that's hard for these manufacturers to keep up to protect against these threats. 91% of all attacks start with a fish, with a P. What does that mean? Well, it's just like going out fishing on the lake. They're sending an email saying, you just won a $50 Amazon gift card. Or, this is your boss. Send me the instructions on how to wire a wire transfer for somebody. And then 95% of those attacks are due to human error. And then finally, how does this affect your bottom line? Well, on average, a business will experience 3 days of downtime after an attack. 60% of those businesses will close within 6 months after the attack. And then we always think about hackers, we're thinking about people trying to get into your network, but over 25% of employees report that they are taking your data when they leave your company. So that's another scary, scary statistic there. There's a lot of myths about what is cybersecurity, what does it do. So for example, a myth is it only happens to big businesses. Well, the truth is about 60% of those attacks are targeted to your small and medium-sized businesses. If you remember the Target attack from a couple years ago, they did not attack Target. They got in through the HVAC provider for Target. It was a small shop, 6 users. But because they had connection to Target systems, that's how they were able to get into their environment. They were not going after Target. Another myth, I've got antivirus, so I'm protected. Well, as we talked about, these hackers are creating these programs so quick that these manufacturers can't keep up. So just having an antivirus by itself is no longer just a sole way to protect yourself. I have a firewall. The firewall will protect me. They're getting around your firewall. So for example, I could have laid a USB device outside the door today, and someone would have picked that up, probably taken it back to the office thinking they've got a brand new USB, it's free, I'm going to see what's on it, and I could have put a code on there that just infected your network, which we've seen those types of things happen. So they're trying to get away from going right through your firewall. They're sending emails. We've seen people drop USB devices to try to put that file, because once they get inside your system, you're doing a great job to protect the perimeter of your network, but once they get in, nobody's watching it from the inside. And then finally, I'm backing up my data, so if I have to restore, I have my data I can restore. And that's a great cornerstone of any kind of data disaster recovery system, but it doesn't fix the system that your network was compromised. So just backing up still allows them to get back in. So what we're going to do here, take a quick step and show you a video of a fictional potential way a hacker can get into a business.
How did you decide to become a hacker?
Well, I'm not really sure what it means to become a hacker. That's like some guy in a hoodie who types really fast and stays up all night writing code and cracking passwords. It's not me. I just spy on people and see what makes them click. It's not a bad job.
Mark Hanning, CEO of Qualicard, set to report earnings after their blockbuster IPO.
So you consider this a job?
I put a lot of work into this. I'm not lazy. It takes research to figure out the key players, learn all about them, their families, their friends, what they care about. You have to understand the company's organization. I get a lot of my information from the sales department because they're always so quick and eager. They're hungry. People trust too easily. They don't look at the details. I do. Details matter. That's what I'm good at. It has to look completely believable. It has to look familiar. This is where research is important. It's not some generic piece of spam. It's an email from their boss with their company's signature. It's written in the voice of the boss. It's what he would say if he were writing this.
What about the malware itself? How does that work?
Somebody else out there already wrote all the code that does the actual attack. I'm just using it in the attachment. My skill is in my ability to get a bunch of people to click on that attachment. I always wonder what it's like when the whole thing unfolds on their end, when the panic sets in.
Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey, this is Rajiv in finance. Call me as soon as you get this. Something's up with my laptop. I can't.
Katie, are you on your way into the office? Something's going on with our file servers.
Karen in HR, our benefits dashboard seems really slow. We're getting calls from users on it. Can you call and get this?
Joining conference now.
Apparently, there's a malware attack targeting our main...
It's ransomware. They're holding us hostage. We're locked out of everything. I can't even check my phone. What about the backup?
That will take days.
We need this fixed now. You pay it. We don't have a choice. We're reporting earnings in 2 hours.
But how do we know that they'll...
pay it. Put every single person on getting us back up and running. That's the only priority now. Okay, it's done. I have the decrypt key. Mark, we have a big problem. The ransomware was just to distract us. They got inside. They got everything. Customer data, financials, everything.
Qualicards is reeling today from the news that hackers have released the personal information of nearly
The
2
Nasdaq
million
closed lower today, led by Qualicard, which was down 14% on news that their recent data breach may be far worse than the company
Its
originally
stock fell to a new all-time low on news that CEO Mark Hanning is stepping down after what is turning out to be one of the worst breaches of personal information in recent history.
Do you feel bad about releasing the personal information? All the financials? All the money that was lost?
All I did was get the files. I'm not the one that decided to release them. I'm not the one that shorted the stock. Somebody else had their reasons for that. It's above my pay grade. I was paid to do a job, and I did it well. And that's what's expected of anyone, isn't it? Anyway, markets bounce back.
So we like to use this video because, it's a fictional attack, so there's not a company called Qualicorp. But if you notice, they just went to a domain registry site and changed an I to an L. Got a copy of the logo, emailed that out to everybody with a message from the CEO. Everybody start clicking on it. That's how easy it can be for someone to get into your network by just simply registering a domain that's one letter off from your business. If we can jump back to the presentation. So we've talked about this now. What do I need to watch out for? So we hear this word malware. What is malware? Malware is kind of this umbrella term that discusses anything that is malicious in nature, trying to get into your network. It includes viruses, ransomware, scareware, adware. And the things that we're seeing more nowadays is with ransomware. And what is ransomware? Once it gets into your system, it encrypts your data. Once it's encrypted, you don't have access to it anymore. Typically, this is done by a user clicking an email attachment that's running a malicious code that then, once it's connected to your network, starts to spread throughout your entire network, encrypting anything that it comes in touch with. The only way to decrypt it is to pay the ransom. So that's why they call it ransomware. You have to pay for a key. You cannot typically decrypt that without the encryption key. It's almost impossible in today's world. In 2017, the average ransom was $1,000. This is more than 3 times what it was in 2015. And on average, even if you do pay that ransom, there is a 20% chance that you will not get the key and potentially not have access to your data. So just by paying the ransom doesn't guarantee that they're going to give you access back to your data. Give you some local examples that happened here. Back in last summer, there was a local construction company that was hit with ransomware, a $30,000 ransom that they paid. Even though they had their data backed up, they still paid the ransom because they figured out it would take longer to try to restore the data than to pay the $30,000 and have the ransom key delivered within a day. Another example, a local business had their payroll records hacked the night before the payroll was supposed to be sent, rerouted the banking information for their employees. Over $100,000 was wired to fraudulent accounts. That's just locally here. So when you hear about the Targets and the Home Depots and those things across the country, it happens here as well. What we're seeing an uptick in is something that we call social engineering. And with social engineering, this is a way of trying to manipulate you to provide data to become a trusted advisor and provide something to me with fraudulent intentions. So, for example, if I was talking to you earlier today, I might have asked, where were you born? What street did you grow up on? Oh, I grew up and I went to Macomber-Whitney for high school. Who was your favorite teacher? Do any of those questions sound familiar? Where did you meet your wife? Those are questions that you're typically asked when you forget your password. So people will just very innocently ask you those questions. And if they have an intent to try to get inside of your network, they can use that against you because now they've gained that information. So you have to be very careful. A lot of times what we recommend for our customers to do with those questions, rather than saying where you were born, say where do you like to vacation the most? Something that you can remember, because nowadays with LinkedIn, with Facebook, we put so much information out on the internet that I could probably look anyone up in here, tell you where you work, where you started to work, where you went to school, where you went to college. We just put all that information out there, and that's a lot of information that's used to then come back and potentially use against you. So as we talked about, the intent is to have a recipient take action based on the request. And so what we're seeing is a lot of email baiting is what we call it. So for example, click here because you've won a prize. You've won a free pizza or an Amazon gift card. Click here to view. We need you to verify. It's a lot of action type stuff. And even lately with the tragedies that happened, we've seen phishing scams of people trying to say, click here to support those people in Florida that were affected by the school shootings. So these hackers take advantage of tragedies to try to say donate so they can get that information and use it against you. We also see spoofing. What is email spoofing? That is something that's sent, but looks like it's sent from somebody you know, but it's not. They're spoofing that intended person that sent you that to make it look like you know them. When they do this in the company, it's called CEO fraud. So they're trying to make it look like they are the CEO asking you to banking transactions. A couple examples, and probably a little bit hard to see here, but this is just a generic download a copy of your bill. Another example here would be someone trying to spoof Apple. You've got an issue with your Apple account, click here. And then finally, the UPS one. The hackers and these programmers have gotten very, very sophisticated. You used to be able to tell very easily in the past. Broken grammar, broken English, they've gotten very, very good in making legitimately looking emails to try to convince you to click on their links. Hard to see here, but if you were to hover over that link, it would take you somewhere else other than UPS. The key thing that we tell our customers is don't click a link in an email. If it's asking you to verify, go directly to that website, enter your information directly, because if they are asking you to do that, they'll prompt you once you log in. I'm going to do another quick video here on social media.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry. So there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're going to have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
And yeah, exactly. It just took a crying baby and a phone call to get blocked out of his account. So what are some of the trends that we're seeing with cybersecurity? Well, what we're seeing is ransomware, as we talked about, is growing. It's grown. It's going to continue to grow. There's actually ransomware as a service that's out there. For $10, I can go online and get a generic attack that I can then use against a company to try to encrypt your data. If I want to spend $3,500, I can have someone customize that attack for me to make it very realistic to your company. And with today's ransoms being on average $1,000, all I need is 4 people to click that, and I've made my money back. We're going to see a shift occur from attacking your computers to your mobile devices. 35% of users use their mobile devices exclusively. So they're going to start going after the mobile device versus the computer. Phishing bots and intelligent scraping of social media accounts. So what's happening is with these Equifax breaches and things of that nature, they're getting data that is legitimate data that can be used against you. They'll be scraping your social media accounts to pull things off of where you lived, where your friends are, to make it look like it's someone that you know. And it's going to make it very hard and real to identify. And then what we'll see, a trend we'll see is an increase in web search tampering. And this is where they will try to intercept your web searching to redirect you to a website that is malicious in intent for you to download information that could be bad for yourself. So after going through all this, how do I protect myself? Well, we have what we call the levels of protection, and the first thing is protecting your perimeter. We've talked about this. Use a business class firewall. If you have any type of features that can take a look at URL filtering or malware intrusion, take a look at that. Implement cloud-based email scanning so it's being scanned even before it hits your network. Patching. And the key with patching is if there is a patch, then there's a vulnerability. For those of you that are out there in the IT world, you know of Microsoft Patch Tuesday. That's the date that Microsoft releases their patches so that you can update your systems. There are hackers that basically go out there and say, Microsoft has just told me what the vulnerabilities are. So now they create code against that because they know most people don't proactively patch their systems. In addition to computers, servers, firewalls, everything else, they have security releases. Make sure you have those on the latest releases. A lot of times this is outsourced just because with day-to-day issues and fires that are burning inside, it's tough to get all of that done. We go from patching to your end user or end device protection, and this is where you have your reputable antivirus, anti-spam scanners, things of that nature. If they have a management console, use that because that can push out everything from one to all of your users rather than having to manage it one by one. Mobile devices. Many of you probably have mobile devices that have your emails. You can access things at your office. Make sure you're putting a device management that phone can get wiped if it's lost or stolen. Data protection, we recommend the 3-2-1 rule. What's the 3-2-1 rule? Make 3 copies of your data, store it on at least 2 different media types, and make sure to keep one off-site. Because a lot of times, even though you're backing up, verify your backups are successful. We had a customer that was backing up their data. They had a ransomware attack. They went to go restore their data and found out their backups were no longer viable. So they had to recreate their data from 8 months to put all that information back in. So just because you're backing up your data doesn't mean it's being successful. So make sure you're verifying that it is successful. And as Michele talked about as we started, education is key. This is why a lot of our customers have started doing these sessions, these lunch and learns, because the environment is constantly changing. Educating your end users are key to protecting yourselves. As we talked about, 95% start with a human attack. Conduct those regular trainings. Send out those emails. Send out things like, this is what's happening. Be aware. If you get a request to email wire instructions, we had another customer that was one click away from wiring $10,000 to a fraudulent company. Put layers of authorization in there so that if it's over $1,000, you have to have someone else take a look at it. Use programs. We have programs that we offer that you can conduct test phishing campaigns on your users. and see who your potential clickers are and help train them to be on the lookout for what to look out for. And then finally, what we're seeing as another key in protecting yourself is cyber liability. Because the truth is there's not one silver bullet. There's not one program that's going to protect you. You're putting in layers of protection, but the truth is you could still have an attack. And when that happens, the cyber liability coverage can be there to help with your fines and defenses. It can help with liability arising from lawsuits, crisis management expenses, notification expenses of a breach, and then data restoration expenses to get your data back up. So work with your insurance companies to see if they offer a cyber liability program that could help protect you in the event that you become a victim to cybercrime. So I know we covered a lot of data. We had some videos and a lot of information to kind of digest here, so I'll try to summarize real quick. 2017 was a record-setting year, and the sad news is it's only going to get worse. It's not a matter of if, but when you'll become a victim of cybercrime. There's not a single solution, so you want to implement layers of security to make it as difficult as possible for someone to get into your system. Cannot stress enough that if there's a patch your environment proactively. And then be vigilant and stay alert. Don't click attachments or links unless you're sure. Don't just accept that linked invitation from someone that you've never met before. You don't know who that person is or what they're trying to do to get into your environment. And then finally, stay up to date. Educate yourselves and your team on what to look out for, because again, all it takes is one wrong click for your data to potentially be lost forever. So with that, thank you again for having Michele and I to go through this presentation with you. If you have any questions, we will be around. We're happy to take some. Or if anyone has questions for the floor, do we have time? Feel free to ask questions. If not, Michele and I will be around, and thank you for your time.
You were really at Buckeye Cable for 27 years? Wow.
Yes, Phil, I was.
Those were some fun times.
They were.
So what I'm getting is that cybersecurity, the threats are coming through tactics that people are implementing, like spamming emails and stuff like that. I remember when we used to be worried about access points into the network, and it sounds like that's really not the question so much anymore. But how vulnerable is, say, a small system to having a guest internet account out there, a guest Wi-Fi?
So I can only tell what we find in some of our instances where there is a guest network, but it's not segregated from your network to your actual data. So when someone's accessing that environment, there's not a separate path that's just leading them out to the internet. They're sharing the same connection that's on your network. And so what we would recommend for our customers is what we call a VLAN. You put a VLAN in that basically says, when I'm on my wireless network, you're not going to touch my internal network. I'm taking you right out to the internet and only secure from the inside from a wireless perspective.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Any other questions? Sure.
So with the invention of the cloud-based software systems, is our data more protected if we're in a cloud-based environment or if we're hardwired within our own environment?
It's a great question. We hear about the cloud and how big the cloud has become, and the truth is, when you put things out to the cloud, unless you know who your provider is, you don't know where that data is being stored. So Amazon's not going to tell you. They have data centers across the world, and a lot of times that data, if they have a data center, let's say in China, for example, you're subject to those local rules in China, not to the United States. So if you're going to go with something in the cloud, the key thing is it's hard to say whether or not one's better than the other. The truthfulness is you put things out in the cloud, you're having worldwide access to that data. So we often tell customers if only you have to have something in the cloud where you have to have that access from anywhere, keep that in the cloud, but a lot of times keep it close.
Educationally, as we direct younger people into fields of cybersecurity, what are the degrees that we should be looking at? Is it more of a Cisco, kind of a network routing system, or is it computer engineering such as you had gone in? What's the direction we should point them in?
That's another great question. So what should these people be, the young people, be learning about? And a lot of times, so when we look, what we take, for example, is we would say Cisco is probably one of the premier security suites that are out there. They have a whole group of engineers that all they do 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, is look at potential traffic and identify what those things are. So, understanding the firewall, understanding threat signatures, things of that nature is what we would probably recommend from that perspective. Great question. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you to Michele and Mike for helping us try and understand a very difficult industry that many of us simply don't have the background for. So it's kind of scary. I know it's out there, but we all have to be aware of that. For being with us today, as a thank you, we're going to be putting a donation in your name to the Polio Plus Foundation. So thank you very much for being with us today. Also, great job for getting us through. We knew we had a really packed day, and so we're going to end here right on time. Next week's program is Chris Wiesfelder and we'll be talking about Toledo's sister cities. Today we have one meeting. Vocational Services is in the North Cape room. Chuck is unable to be with us today, so we have no Chuck Chuckles, so stay tuned for next... I won't tell him you did that, but stay tuned for next week. But everything else is good, so with that, we are adjourned. Thank you. Wow, 10 minutes early.